Hello, restoration lovers, Yorkshire Classic Cars Limited lovers, and Stag, Capri, whatever you like, lovers really. What I'm going to do today is start and repair these P100 back quarters, back wings. Okay, these are the sides of the tail bed, the bed of the pickup truck. I'll close up in a second so you can see, but these are quite rotten. Normally a job like this I'd do on the car, so as to limit distortion and things like that. The car that these are from has had a full tube chassis built, so it's a drag car basically. It may not see the road. So basically there's nothing left to time to, as you can see. Just floppy sections of steel. I'm going to do a little bit of a guide on how I repair a section, make a section and address a repair on a panel like this. Again, as ever, not saying it's the best way, not saying it's the only way. All I'm going to do is show you my way and hope that you can glean something from it. So what I'll do is, I'll just show you the panel. They're over here at the moment. I just left them here because it's easy to show you the damage. As you can see there's a rust hole here. It is very thin, the material. You can see it's all pockmarked here where the rust has got a hold of it. All that needs to come out. There's no use just cleaning that and trying to weld to rotten material. It's rusty down the bottom edge here. There is a seam in here, along this edge here. So there is a flat section on the inside and a flat section here. That is obviously gone. It's rusted away inside and hence that part is broken free. So there's also some rot down here and some here. Now, this part is bubbly, and I think it's probably rotten, but I'm going to give that a good clean, which is always the first step to sort of approaching any repair. Don't just go straight in with your angle grinder, just go in. Cutting disc is what I mean when you say angle grinder. What I go in is I clean it off, and I use either a wire wheel, goggles, or one of these discs. Now, I can't remember what you call these discs. I get them on Amazon, because that seems to be the cheapest place. I think 3M made them originally. They're like a carbide. Now, I particularly like these. They don't strip away the metal, so unlike a flat disc, you're thinning the material down all the time, making it weaker and weaker. These just remove the paint, they remove the rust, and they make a good surface to weld to without causing any further damage. What I will say as a preempt on either of these is if you hit a hole or an edge, that angle grinder is coming back at you at more knots than you can cope with. I had one of these flick off when I was doing under the Capri. I hit a suspension member with it inadvertently, just taking off a little bit of surface rust, and the disc broke and hit me in the chest that hard. It knocked me off my feet, which isn't particularly pleasant. And yeah, I don't cry a lot, but I did whimper a bit that day. But I do like these. I'll video me cleaning that off and sort of ascertaining the damage totally and stripping it down and cutting probably the back corner out first. Okay? So in here, at the back of there where the rust is, and I'll point to it in a second, here, okay, there are two 13mm nuts. Those are M8. They hold that sort of rubber buffer on. Now this one's still on there, so what I'm going to assume is that they are absolutely rusted on solid. So what I'm going to use is a 13mm long reach socket. This is just a 3/8. It fits on my little baby 3/8 Ugga Dugga gun. They are 6-wall. These give you a lot more purchase on the piece and help you to remove it without spinning. If they don't tackle it and they round off, I also have these. These are made by Irwin, but I'm sure other people make them as well. Zoom you back out. These are made by Irwin, but I'm sure other manufacturers make them. These are they're a bit like an easy out, but for a nut. So as you unscrew it, tightens itself on. These are infallible. These are literally worth their weight in gold to me for getting things like that off. Now, normally I wouldn't use an Ugga Dugga gun on a classic car, but because these are so far beyond being damaged, I'm going to risk it on here for a biscuit. It's over here. It's only a small Ugga Dugga gun I use. It isn't massive. It doesn't do a lot of damage, which is what I like. Yep, that's the first one broken off. no major surprise, and it's stuck in there like you know what to a blanket. So what I'll do is I'll use the 13mm one of these, purely because I've got them to hand. Yeah, that's the one that's stuck. I'll use a slightly smaller one, see if I can deal with that. To be honest with you, it's that rotten in this corner. It's off anyway. So yeah, pad on. So you can see that the bottom corner there is absolutely rotten. I haven't bothered cleaning that, and I'm not going to clean the rust and muck off this ginormous hole here. What I was basically looking for there was some solid metal, and as you can see I found some. It was right up under the light aperture there. Now this is a particularly difficult section to make. I've checked here to see what it was doing. You'll also have noticed when I was doing it, hopefully you could see it when it was speeded up, I was dodging from side to side in different areas. These discs are great, but they will build some heat up if you're not careful, and you don't want to warp the panel too much. Now I appreciate this panel is, you know, beyond its sell-by date really, but we don't want to destroy what we've got, because we're going to use that as a pattern. So what I'm going to do next is cut this corner out here, and I'm going to leave probably about 3-4 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch, just under that light there, so I know where I'm working to. And then I'll come across here and avoid that rust here, and I'll just cut above here there. Okay, so I will whip that out with the cutting disc, and you can see me do that. So you can see that piece now, I've retained it. It's actually a very complicated piece. There's a back section in it here, and it rolls round to that. Now I may change the shape of that ever so slightly, mainly because it's not really a restoration, and to be honest, these are so far gone. There isn't actually going to be a tailgate going on. It's just going to have a loop with a parachute on it. This piece, normally I would use that as a former if it was in one piece, but I'm going to have to make a separate section to go in there as well, which goes here. That's the shape here. Obviously that's the original shape, so I'd rather keep that if I need to make a pattern or whatever. I've cut down the edge of here, hope you can see that, and I've left the seam on here for now. I will remove that in a moment, and I'll probably weld a new piece on both sides there, because I'm going to have to make a piece to go right down. I don't particularly want to do that yet, because the sides are a bit wiggly wobbly. In fact, just putting it on the workmate involved about 20 minutes of swearing that you didn't see. This part is good in here. It's flaky, but it's solid. So I'll give that a good clean up before I start. but I'm pretty sure that's fine. There was a little smoke coming off because it's got some seam sealer in here. So I need to make a piece with a lip to come on here. I think the first part I would probably make is a straight piece to come straight down and weld that in, and repair this seam on here for that to go against, and then I'll make a curved part to go in here. I've accrued some measuring equipment here. I've got a tape measure, engineer's square, tri-square, using those. A steel rule that I use just as a straight edge. As you can see, it's got lemon green, and I've used it to stir etch primer, so that's stuck on there for a fair old while. Like everything in my toolbox, it's now lemon green. I'm going to make a piece, I'm hoping you can see that clearly on the camera, to go in here first, okay? So a straight edge there to come all the way down. Now this is quite a complicated section. It has a lip on the back here. I'm hoping I'm positioning this right. I can't look at the camera and talk to you. It has a lip on here. You can see the remnant of that. I've got to fabricate that lip to go on there. And it also has a lip on the back there. Oh no, sorry, that's a separate section. It needs a lip on the bottom, but I'll add that in later. Because I try to make my panels a little tiny bit oversized as I put them in, and then if you need to remove metal, it's, as I've mentioned many times before, it's significantly easier to grind it away than it is to weld it back in. We've all been at that point where we've made a panel and then realised it was back to front or something like that, and you've cried a little bit. So what I'm going to do, hope you can see there, let me just check, yeah, I'm going to measure from that top corner here. The corner helps, that helps to stop stresses a little bit. You'll also notice there's just a slight roll here, a slight swage. You can't see it very well, but there's a swage that's probably about 16 millimetres, 17 millimetres there that I'm also going to put in. You can see it better on the panel when I divert it down there. So I'm just going to measure around that. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want it to be as close as possible. I don't like wasting material. And I get that. Now I tend to work in inches or millimetres. I can do both, and I can change from one to the other. That is there or thereabouts 12 inches. So what I'm going to do is cut 12 1/4. I'm going to remove a little bit of that distance when I put this swage in. It won't be 1/4 of an inch. It'll be a couple of millimetres. And then in the age-old adage, I'm going to measure it again. Because you measure twice, or 2 or 3 times, and cut once. Now, the second time I'm measuring that, if I hold that quite tight, it's just over 12 inches actually. I'm getting 12 1/4 anyway, so I'll cut that 12 1/2, just be on the safe side. Now then, I want that to be a straight edge down that edge. Doesn't exactly have to be, I can always change it, but I have a straight edge on my material. Here, I'm going to use that. When I was a school teacher, you give a sort of a student a piece of material like that, and you guarantee them mark it out slap bang in the middle and have to cut every corner. This saves a lot of time. And it's a dead square edge. It's cut in a factory on a huge guillotine, so we know it's right. So I'm going to mark down that 12 1/2 inches along this edge. Not too worried about this part here, because most of that's going to get cut off. So I'm going to measure down there. In fact, I'm going to go from here. Got a pencil, bear with me. Sorry about that. My steel roll, I'm going to measure down there, parallel to this cut line here. Don't run your fingers down the edge of the material for very obvious reasons. It's like a razor blade, and I'm going to make a rough mark at 12 1/2. I'm going to use my tri-square then, my engineer's square, so I know now that that corner there is square. Okay, so if I measure away from that now, how much I need, I want to start, see on the camera here, I want this flat section made up to about here. There's a slight curvature starting there, but I can work that into my piece. And again, if I need to remove it, I can do afterwards. So I'm going to measure to around here, I think. So probably a couple of mil in from that cut. And I get that to about 7 centimetres, 70 millipeppers. So, millimetres. 7 centimetres or millipeppers is about 2 3/4 inches. tend to use whichever is closest. So if it's exactly 70 mil, I'm not going to convert it to inches. I'm not going to go 2 and 2 3/4, 7/16, 3/32. I'll just use 70 mil because that's what's there. So finger on the edge, rule up to there, 70 centimetres, 70 millimetres, sorry, centimetres, idiot. Same again there, 7 centimetres. And I'm just going to use my straight edge. I'm confident that that's in the right place. And scribe a line. Now I'm going to cut that with the guillotine. I have a guillotine in the background, I don't know if you can see it there. Okay, there's a guillotine there. It's a little bit worn out, my guillotine, at the minute. I think I need to adjust it, so I won't film that because it's a little bit embarrassing if it chews the material up. You can cut it with an angle grinder. My ex-boss, when I worked for Yorkshire Triumphs, he cut everything with an angle grinder. He wouldn't use a guillotine. I like to cut with a guillotine. I find making straight lines quicker and easier, but that's just how I do it. The material I'm using is the same thickness as what I am replacing. The truck body is about 1 millimetre thick. I can tell just by looking at it, you know. It's not the thin stuff that modern vehicles are made out of, the 0.8. It's not as thick as 1.2. So yeah, 1 millimetre thick. I can't remember what gauge that is. I think it's 18. Could be completely wrong. It might be 20 gauge. I think it's 20 gauge, the truth be told. It's obviously a lot easier if it seems easier to weld thick stuff into that. So if I did all this out of 1.5, making the panel be difficult to shape, but very easy to weld. But then when you try to weld it to the 1 mil that the original piece was made from, it's difficult because you've got two different thicknesses. And then obviously if you've got to do any overlaps or anything like that, it just looks a disaster because you've got this huge thick chunk of metal there which doesn't belong. Modern cars are made out of really thin stuff like 0.8 mil thick, and you need to use 0.8 mil thick. I know my Skyline is, I know things like my Audi are probably even thinner than that now to try and save weight. You start whopping 1.2 in there, it's just going to look a mess. Obviously, you know, structure in vehicles is designed in, so when Triumph built their cars, you know, the chassis rails and things were made out of 1.6, 1.8, 2 mil thick steel to add strength. So you need to replace that like for like to put the strength back in. And the same with this really. Although that's just a forged panel, we go, well, it's not structural. It has structure. All these forms and shapes are in it to add structure. It's not just Mickey Mouse. They didn't just press it that shape for aesthetic reasons. Right, anyway, I'll cut this out, stop blithering on, and start and shape it. So just grab my strip of steel. This is going to go in here. It's going to go up to that edge here. I hope you can see that on the camera. So what I need to do now, I'm just going to mark that just for my own peace of mind. I need to measure this distance here, okay, and mark there where I'm touching. Because then I can draw that triangle in, okay? So, that's actually, I'm going to stop there and use the other end. Now I'm on top of the part of the seam I've left in. I don't want to take that out just yet, but I will in a minute. Okay, and now I need to measure that. Which is going to be easier said than done with my big straight edge, but we'll manage. Okay, so that touching there, that on there, I get, for milli peppers, 32. Going back to the bench. So going back to the bench, my tri-square, I've deposited on the floor, using my, hoping you can see me there, using my engineer's square, I'm going to draw a line square and 90 degrees to the corner. That edge, oops. I don't usually make this many mistakes, it's the pressure. Just draw a line down there, and I need 32mm down there. I need to make a mark. So I'm going to make a mark at 32mm, which is there or thereabouts. And then I know that if I scribe from this corner to that mark, that should be a replica of what's on the car. Now then, this part here, where the two lines cross, I know I need a straight line out of there. So I've drawn that, like that. Okay, hope you can see that. Can you see it? Oh yeah, sorry. There, like that. So I need to cut now along this straight line here, to there and up there. Before I do that, I'll check it on there, and then what I'll do is I'll cut it and come back to you. It's all being well now. You can see that that fits in there. Pretty damn good actually. Okay, it's a little difficult with this edge still on here, so what I'm going to do now is remove that. What I'm hoping I can do is remove this rotten edge here. As you can see, it's rotted off here many moons ago. What I think I'll do there is try and get that off the old-fashioned way. If I can't, I'll cut very carefully down the edge of that piece of material and weld a new piece in and grind it back. I'm not going to do the whole edge. I'm just going to do to about here where it is. In fact, I'm going to mark that now, because that's my shape that I'm trying to work to. When I take this off, if I take the inner edge off, that's going to change shape quite significantly. If I leave the inner edge on, that will stay the same shape and it won't move. So I'll try and get that off now, and I'll show you how I do that too. So I'm just going to try and curve this edge away. I have a wood chisel here. It's pretty sharp. Okay, a wood chisel is excellent for cutting metals with. It does it a world of damage, but a good quality wood chisel will save you a lot of time. I'm just going to gently give that a tap. I'm not trying to destroy the existing parts of the panel. And then a good tight, good quality pair of mole grips, or vice grips as the Americans call them. I mean, they're wrong obviously, but they do call them that. So roll those on. I hope you can see what I'm doing there. Zoom you out a touch. And then I'm just going to roll those around whilst working the spot welds. Now I can see I've left a section behind there, so change of plan. Let's try that again. Genuinely don't think this is going to work, but this is the way I would do it if the panel was significantly better than this, definitely. This is a ropey old panel. Normally I wouldn't even be repairing something like this, I'd replace it, but these are so hard to come by. What are you going to do, you know? Obviously if you start with something like this and not able to buy panels and things, the chance of making a good repair for a sensible price, which is part of the age-old problem, it's difficult, you know. Anyway, that's coming. It's working the spot weld. I'm just pulling away from it and giving it a rock, and just trying to break that spot weld, hopefully. And not there he goes. Okay. Once I've got this off, I can then look at the condition now. Hopefully you can see now that that's taken the whole edge. It was just breaking off here before because it was very rotten. So this should now get a little easier. Famous last words. But this is just going to work a little bit, making sure I'm not damaging the panel, bending it all out of shape. I can feel the spot welds going on the other side. I will probably end up cutting this edge off anyway, but it depends where I cut it and what's left. Like most jobs, it's changing all the time, you know. This isn't Doug's Bodgerama, this is me trying to do it right, so that's certainly as good as I can get it. So, yeah, got that out. It's pretty blooming ropey in there, to be honest. It mostly broke no real surprise there looking at the panel. So what I need to do now is I'm going to put a small overlap in there. It's only going to be about 1 millimetre, okay? That's going to come down here like this. So I need to trim out of here and out of here just a tiny weeny bit, just so the edges there fall flush. I could butt weld that together, but I don't like butt welding material particularly, if I'm really honest. So that will make a better finish if I do it like that. The step allows you to butt weld the last sort of 1/4 of an inch. I tend to find, in my experience, and I could be wildly wrong on this, but when I butt weld stuff together, it usually ends up, when I grind it back, it's so thin. I mean, it doesn't always crack, but sometimes it goes through and you think, I don't know if I'm leaving enough material in there always. So, yeah, I'm going to just whip that little bit out of there with the grinder. So take the bit out there so that will fit just behind there. Okay. I will, of course, clean up here as much as I can. And there's a little bit of a burr on there, so I'm not worried about that just yet. All I'm doing is measuring out at this point. So, square to there, square to there, square to there. That's a pretty good fit actually. Tiny little bit off, but not a huge amount, so it just needs a little trimming. The bottom of my swage line is here. And the top of it is here. So I'll need to form those in now, mark and form those in now. I'll do that with my tri-square while you're here. So I need to press that in. Now, I'm going to struggle to make that piece have that swage all the way around. Now, I don't know if the original did have it all the way around. It did not. It sort of came flat to the edge of my material. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to swage that so as I mark my swage lines here. Should be able to see those on there. It's in pencil, it's not very clear. The original piece, the swage came along here, but ended here, where the end of that cut is actually, which is adjacent to there. So, which is adjacent to there. Sorry, a bit too close. Which is about here, and so did the upper swage. So it's flat here, basically. So what I need to do is swage those in now, and I'm going to use the vise for that. Okay, so just going to use my vise here. Excuse my mess my vise is in. This is a working garage. It's not a pretend garage like you see on the TV. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that level in there. Now I don't want too hard a bend, so I'm going to try and not use much in the way of hammers. I will use a mallet on that. I have a hide mallet. Okay, now then, the next important thing is to get your workpiece and check you're bending it in the right direction, because trust me, when you make a really elaborate piece like this and then realise your swage is in the wrong direction, that's why it's upsetting. Everybody's done it. If they say they haven't, they're a liar. So the first swage, we're actually like this at the moment. Okay, the point is like that. So the first swage is going back. So I need to just go back a little with that. So I'm just going to apply a little pressure on the material. Give it a couple of donks with the Malataruni. It's only a very fine swage, it's not a particularly large angle, and I do that by eye. There you can see the swage. Now, I am happy with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bob it back in. It'll probably look fine, but I just want to make sure it's just got a little bit more bend there. Now as you can see on that, you should be able to see there, as I've formed the bend, it's created a little bit of a divot here. So I'm going to get rid of that now. Okay, so that's gone. And the reason, oops, sorry about that. The reason for doing that now is because afterwards you can't always get to it. I have some smaller hammers, obviously. So that one needs to come back this way. So, same again. Into my vise. Small hammer, because I can't get the mallet into there. Could use a piece of wood or something like that. I'll just be gentle with my hammers. Excuse me. Okay, so there you go, there's the swage formed. Right, that's quite better than I expected actually. Now then, this end needs to be flat. You should be able to see there that it's got a little bit of a wiggly woo in. I've over swaged it here so that when I put this in the vise, just flatten it out again, which I shall do from there, it will straighten this end swage a little as well. So all being well now, I need to compare that to my original piece. Compare that to my original piece. It looks okay at a glance. It may have a little bit too much swage on it. It does. Okay, so I'm going to get my mallet that I just threw on the floor. Never be afraid to keep working your metal until it's right. The better the fit, the better the result, and there is no two ways about that. If anybody tells you different, they're a liar. If you're bodging bits of metal in, altering them in the car as you go along, it takes longer to cover up a bodge than it does just to do it right in the first place. So I'm just squaring up the material there, make sure it's nice and flat to itself. You'll see a little bit of a curve's appeared here again as you stretch the metal. So that should remove that. And I'm going to try that on the panel now. So first test fit. Okay, so that onto there. Right, so that, the angle is good. This needs to come up a little bit there. I'm just going to ease that on the floor like that, do it by hand. That's pretty blooming good, is that? You probably can't make it out on the camera. That's a good shape now. Okay, so with that piece just caught under there, just slightly. The swage fits lovely there. Swage fits lovely there. So what I need to do now is shape this piece around to match the original panel, which is now over on the bench. So I'll do that now. So what I think the method I'll use this time, keeping it as square to the edge again as possible. I'm just going to put the mole grips on here. Okay, just to hold them in place. You can't really use the original panel as a book because for a starter for 10 it's so rotten. It's going to move all over the place. But what I'm going to try and do, if you can see that, is just support it a little and just work it until I can get the shape close. And then hand finish it. So I'm just bending it round by hand, just easing the metal. You always need to over bend it a little bit. I'm going to move the clamps down. You need to overshape it a tiny bit because it will always spring back. So the tightness of the bend is there, the tightest part of the bend. So I'm going to draw a line there, roughly there. There's a radii there. What I'm going to use is the next shaped thing, which is my leg. And just ease the shape a little like that. Now then, if I hold that against that, I call that pretty blooming good actually. Needs a tiny bit more there. needs to be tightened up a little here. So use a slightly smaller radius, which is my kneecap. You're just trying to do a little at a time, not too much. Just shape it as you go. So if I hold that on there now, bearing in mind I've got to weld to this, and when I've welded a lip on it, this shape is going to be pretty much permanent. So if I put those two together now, you can see that that shape actually isn't that good there. It needs tightening here. So that part there needs tightening. Again, I'll use my kneecap. I try to use something not too hard really, I guess, because I don't want to create dints and curvature in it like that. So what I need to do now is ease that piece up a bit, and there we go, that's a good shape now. Is it perfect? No. Is it close? Yes. There's a big flat here, and I'm going to throw it out that that's more of a dent, because I can't feel any shape, any flat in there really. There is a little bit, but not, it's beyond here. This is flat, this part should be radiused, I think. Looking at the original panel, and it's just got dent of being moved around, so I'll use that as a pattern, but yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. So what I'm going to do now is cut the lip that should have been there. So I'm going to draw that piece on my piece of steel, and I'm going to cut that out and make a lip and weld it to that.